Welcome, flight crews, to another episode of SWVA Operations Channel. My name is Jason. I'll be your pilot, captain, whatever you want to call it. Today, out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, we are in the middle of non-normals this whole series, and we're going to be doing a non-normal. We're sitting in Puerto Rico at the gate C-35, getting ready to go. We're ready to push back and fly this flight to Orlando. If you're new to the channel and you want to know what we're about, it's pretty simple. 3 things. If you want to know how learn to do it right, learn something, and have fun, you've come to the right place. We really dial in on 2 things: Southwest procedures and the 737. So hopefully that's what you'd like. If you want to support us, check the link down low. It's on the description below on this video. Patreon.com/the737guy. We give you a whole bunch of digital downloads for different tiers. So definitely check those out and cancel anytime. That helps us as well. Also, if you're thinking about booking a trip on Southwest, in the description below as well, there's going to be a link to get you Southwest vacations. Check that out as well. They're awesome. If I have dogs barking, I apologize. I'll try the best to do what to limit the volume in the studio, but those folks know sometimes that's impossible. We're going to jump in. Like I said, we're getting ready to push back from the gate. We're just going to go ahead and turn on our APU here in a minute, and I'm just going to do a couple things before we go. I'm just going to click reset, and we'll get that done and reset. There we go. Everything's ready to go. We have 2992 standard here. 146 on the departure. It's actually there we go. 140, I believe. Let me look at just really quick what the and one was going to do a full power in here. It was 146, so I was the dummy. I'm just doing some cleanup actions here. We're taking off on runway 8, and we're going to climb to 5,000. Master's coming on my side, and the other, we're good to go. Okay, that's all set. Just a couple things to clean it up. Okay, we're about very close to pushback here. We're going to go ahead and we've simulated, we run through our checklist. We're actually ready to push here. You can see 1458. We'll be pushing pretty much right at 1500. So I'm going to get the APU on just a little after. I think it's like 1505 we're scheduled. So we're going to do pretty good on that. I'm going to go ahead and fire up the APU. And by the way, we're in 8601 Charlie today, and I'll just give you an outside picture of that. Now the gate would still be connected, but this gate doesn't move for some dumb reason. This is the old 35 gate. I think they changed it now or something like that. So, all right, we're going to get in here, and we will fire up the APU while we're at it. So we're going to go APU to start. That's going to do its thing. Again, we're ready to go. Airplane's programmed. We got about 23,000. Puts us right around 5.2 when we get to Orlando. Is very close for comfort for me. That's pretty tight margins. I like a little bit of more fuel on that, but you know, it is what it is. And I'm gonna change this to 80. Sorry. That's our runway heading. So we're going to fly runway heading. Pretty much going to be a straight climb, and then we're going to bank it over to the left on the climb out, and we should be good to go. Our APU's coming start. Looking good. EGT is up. We wait for that EGT to settle. We got generators coming up, so we'll go ahead and throw the generator on. Good deal. Okay, both gens on. Looking good. Now we're on the APU bus. That's what that has done for us. So that's nice. Okay, let me just go upstairs really quick. Just check everything. I'm going to throw the anti-collision light is on. They're hooking up the tow bar. Obviously the tow bar is hooked up already. We'll go and do an APU bleed, and we'll throw our bleed air on here. That switch right here, the APU bleed's coming to start. Okay, well, take a look at the duct pressure. It's at 0. So we have a problem with the air, or we have a problem with the duct. So either or, we've got an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and close that really quick. And take a peek, see what's happening. There's nothing going on. So what I'm going to do, since we're at the gate, I'm going to go ahead and contact our dispatcher via the ACAR system. So I'm going to just email dispatch, text them, let them know we have no air in the duct in the keel beam of the APU. So what I'm going to do is call them, and then when I have maintenance, give them a call and let them know what's going on. Also, I'm going to pull the flight attendant, the A flight attendant in, and talk to him or her about the situation, that we might have a delay on the ground. We might take a delay. So it looks like we might have to do an air bottle start. Now, we're going to fast forward everything, right? The delay comes out, the maintenance comes out, they're going to in-op the APU, at least the air of the APU. It looks like we still have electric, which is great. It's good news for the ground crew. It's still bad news for us because we're going to have to do an air bottle start on the ground. So one of the things I'm going to want to do is, now I could do this over the radio, but I'm going to do this in person because I want to talk to people. I like face-to-face contact, especially when it comes down to something like this, where it's imperative that both of you, the pilot and the ground crew, are on the same page, because somebody could get really hurt really quick doing this procedure. So it's important that you are both on the same page and you both understand what's going to happen. So we're going to talk about a few things. I already talked to the A flight attendant. We're going to keep the back door open until we start both engines. Okay, we're not going to push. We will push back after we fire up number 1. So I'm going to pretend that you guys are the ground crew and we're going to talk. Okay, so I'm just going to say, hey, we're going to have to do an air bottle start. I'm sure we don't have continuous flows, so there's going to be an air bottle start today. Can you go get it? Obviously, I would alert them already if they can come out and get it. We're going to need to do an air bottle start. And so I'll also talk about what engine we're going to start first. Now, we're going to start number 1 first, and then we're going to start push back, and then we're going to cross bleed to number 2. So let them know that we're going to start 1. We do know, the good thing is we don't need ground power on the aircraft because we have it on, we're running on the buses. So we're going to keep the APU on. We're just going to keep the APU bleed off. We're on the bus though, so that's good for us and it's good for them. If they didn't have that, let's say the APU is completely in op, that's what would happen. What would happen is we would have to start number 1. They'd have to unplug the ground when we tell them we're on the bus. They'd wrap up the ground, the ground wire and then the ground cable, and then they'll push us back, and then we'll start to, after they disconnect, we'll start the tow bar. So anyway, that would be the only situation that would be different in this particular situation, but it's pretty much going to be the same as I just talked about. So what we're going to do is we'll start number 1 first. Then after we get a good start on number 1, minimum pressure I'd like to see about 450 to 500 psi in the bottle. So if they could relay that to the tug operator, they'll call us on the headset and say, yeah, we're good to go. We have between 450 to 500 psi in the bottle. You're good to start. Okay. No really conditions starting this. We have real calm winds here, so I'm not really worried about that. Temperatures standards are perfect. We're going to talk about disconnection communication. So what I mean by that is, okay, when are we going to disconnect the air to the airplane? So what I mean by that is, you see that yellow tube coming out? That's external air. That's bypassing the packs. It's going right into the distribution manifold, and it's going into the cabin. So that providing air conditioning to our passengers right now. Once we disconnect that, guess what happens, folks? Yes, you're right. It gets hot. However, it's 15 degrees C here, so it's standard. It's going to be in the 70-ish category. No, it's a little less than that. It's probably in the 50s, right? 50s and 50s in San Juan is pretty much non-existent. What we say, 15 degrees, that's standard, so it's like 52, isn't it? Something like that. 50-ish. So, that's good for the passenger. But let's say real San Juan, it's going to be hot. Well, maybe 80, pushing 80 degrees. So I'm going to worry about Cool, and the only reason why it's 15 degrees Celsius here is because I don't have active sky on. Normally if I have active sky on, it's going to simulate that weather. So I am going to simulate hot temperatures in the cabin today. Let's say it's about 80 degrees. So I am going to be concerned about AC, air conditioning, and how we're going to get continuous air conditioning to the passengers with minimum disruption. So one of the things I will talk to right now the ground crew on is jacking the temperature down. I can't control that, they can control that. So I'm going to say, can you bring it all the way down? I want you to Arctic air into the cabin as much as you can. And I'll brief the passengers and say, folks, we're going to do an air bottle start. We're going to start one of the engines at the gate here. We're going to push back, then start the second one. I'm going to try to cool down the cabin as much as I can. Shut the window shades down if you can. Eliminate the sun getting hot, because it might get a little warm as we are waiting for the engines to start this procedure. Okay, good deal. So we will definitely disconnect the AC hose before I start number one, as I do not want ground personnel to get hurt, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to talk to them and say, all right, let's disconnect the air hose, and let's do that. So first things first, let's get into the ground control here, and let's go ahead and connect the air starter. You can see the air starter hose is there. It's going to be an air bottle, and that's this thing right here. It's connected. I'm going to actually take this off. It's ground power. So this air bottle here is connected to the right side of the airplane. You can see how it's connected there. So that the ground personnel is going to disconnect this air hose, and then we're going to keep this on. It's going to again shove bleed air into the right side, and we're going to cross bleed to start number one first. Once number one is first started, then I'll have them disconnect this air bottle here, push us back, then we'll cross bleed number two. Got it? So that's going to be our procedure. Hopefully it makes all sense. So what we're going to do right now is disconnect the ground power, because we already have power with the, I don't want to do that. We're going to set those chocks, and we're going to have to disconnect the air conditioning here, and we're going to connect the air start. And we will set a chock. You still need to be chocked. So even when you do this, we're actually going to chock the right side, not the left. I'll let them know that. Pull the left side out, pull the left chock out, and then disconnect the ground air. So we're going to do that. We'll disconnect the ground air, and then I'll talk to them. By the way, I'll do all this face to face, and then again in the airplane, just so everybody's on the same page. So I'm going to get in the airplane right now. We'll go ahead and shut the door. I've already had my briefing with him or her. I'm pushing the airplane back. We're going to close this door. I've already briefed the flight attendants, let them know, keep the door open. And so we're good. I am going to just do ground connections, because we're going to need that. All right, so what we'll do is, again, I talked about starting number one. External air is going to be disconnected. We'll push back, and then we'll start number two. We're never going to operate these engines above idle. Pack switches will be off. They are off already. Direct the pushback, and we'll go like 450 to 500 psi. So I'm going to call them up, and I'm going to say, ground crew, just let me know if air bottle pressure drops below 100 psi, because it's going to drop. It's going to drop when we start number one. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start number one first. So I've got my beacon light on, and I'm going to let them know, okay, we're going to start number one. And I'm going to throw in the APU gen. By the way, they'll just defer that. They'll just probably put a note in the tech log with the APU and say, APU bleed and op deferred, whatever. It's not a requirement for flight, and we're not going extended range operations today, so that's even better. Okay, so the packs are off. You can see the duct pressure coming in. That's very important. Not so much on the NGs, but the classics, you needed a minimum. In the NGs, you don't. So we've got packs off, recircs are on, and we're going to start number one. Now the isolation valve's on auto right now, and because of the bleeds, you can see what's happening. Now if I open the ISO valve, I know what's going to happen, right? We're going to actually open the valve. We're going to force the valve is, because of the dual bleed on. I'm going to throw it open. You don't have to. You can auto. In auto, it will duct it. So I'll show you. If we keep it in auto, what happens, right? Let's go ahead and fire up number 1. So I'm going to call ground and say, are we clear to start number 1? They're going to say yes. So let's go ahead and clear number 1. This should port in. We're going to go to number 1 to ground. Okay, now you can see the spool up going on here. The N2 spool, I'm making sure my throttle's idle. We make sure they're clear. They have somebody stationed on the left side of the airplane saying you're clear. And it's a normal start, okay? We're just using the bleed. I apologize. I normally have my 25. We're going to go fuel. There's a light. Good light. We're going to watch these numbers coming up. We're looking for oil pressure drop. Oil pressure's coming up, which is good. The light's off. I'm watching the EGT and making sure we're good to go. I'm looking for starter cutout about 56, 57-ish. There's the starter cutout. Now next I'm going to go and watch the rollback. The rollback's done. That red protection EGT line is now gone, so we're good. So what I will say is, once we do that and we start number 1, we just did that, what I'm going to do is call them up and say, okay ground, we got a good start on 1. I'm going to go ahead and connect the bus, the number 1 bus to the number 1 generator of the bus. And then I'm going to say it's a tow bar, clear and straight. And they're going to say yes. Because that's very important that the tow bar is clear. Because if the tow bar is jacked up and I flip the electrics on, guess what? It could jar the tow bar. It can mess it up real bad. All right, now we're going to close the ISO valve. Okay, I'm going to close the isolation valve. Okay, you can see nothing. That right needle drops to 0 because there's nothing on the right side. And then I'm going to open pack number 1 to high because I want to get that cooling in the cabin. And you could see, you know, our passengers are comfortable, and they're comfortable because it's 15 degrees C outside. You know, I'm simulating hot conditions, so it would be hot. I throw it on high. The pack's on high, so that's good. Okay, and then I'm going to talk to the ground crew, and I'm going to say, okay, can you remove the external air, and then you're cleared to disconnect the air card. I'm going to say, okay. So they're going to disconnect the air starter, and we're going to disconnect the wheel chock. All right, so I'll say, chock's out. Are we good to disconnect? He says yes. So then we'll come outside. I'll show you what we got. We got a lit engine for number 1. Okay, we're going to have a pushback going on right now, so we're going to get the airplane to push, and I don't think we're going to get it. Yeah, of course. And that's just because that's a GSX issue with this. So we could do pushback straight. We're just going to go straight back about 200 feet. Okay, and we'll get a good push here. And I'll start.
Ground, cockpit.
Go ahead, Captain.
We're all set to go up here. We've been cleared to push and start at your discretion.
Roger that, ready for push. Power and air are clear, doors closed. We are ready for pushback. Use parking brake, please.
Okay, we're going to pop the brake, and we're going to push.
Okay, parking brake is off, cleared to push.
Okay, as we push,
Brakes off, here we go.
and we're not going to start, and I'm going to tell the ground crew this, we're not starting number 2 until you disconnect. Because I don't want to hurt anybody, I don't want, you know, anything to happen, so it's just better to do that than to say, oh yeah, let's fire number 2, because we're going to bring up the engine number 1, and we got a wing walker on that engine, or that wing. I don't want to mess anybody up. I want to get away from the gate, get away from airplanes, and then we'll do a cross bleed, and I'll show you how to work that cross bleed here in a minute, once we're done pushing back. Beautiful 800, that's what we're in Puerto Rico. Now normally it's probably spin us. But like I said, right now in the cabin, the passengers are getting air, not a lot, but they're getting air. So I'm going to set brake.
Right, brakes are set and pressure's normal.
Okay, sir. Tow bar is on. Pin is out. Watch for the pin on the right.
So we'll take a look on the
All
right
guys,
side of the
thanks. You're
airplane.
cleared to disconnect. We will be watching for the pin and the release from guidance on the right side of the airplane, and we'll see you guys next time through.
Okay.
Roger that.
So what we're going to do is come up to the overhead. Obviously, they disconnected the tow bar, and we're going to go and put our bleeds on. Make sure they're both on. Now, this pack, we're going to have to turn off. Now, this is the problem when it comes to, in this situation. We're going to fire the isolation valve open. Now, we're going to take this air from number 1. We're going to cross it to the right side, to number 2. And I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to do, obviously, we got the APU bleed air switch. Make sure that's off because we don't want to blow back. And that's good because when we push some throttle up, it's going to happen. Air conditioning packs are off. The ISO valve's on auto. You could throw it on auto. I like to open it. But what happens if I put it on auto? It's going to still open. Okay, because we only have a bleed. The packs are off and the bleeds are open, so it's gonna open the ISO valve for us. We're going to advance number 1, and we're going to advance it to a 30 psi minimum. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up number 1. Just a little bit. Let's see what we got. Not 30 and 1. We're just going to push the throttle up a little bit. Brakes locked. Yep. Always want to make sure you're holding the brakes here, and you can see what we've got on the duct pressure. Very important that you check the duct pressure. We're at 30 psi right now. It's perfect. So we got this air shoving in, crossing over to the right side. And now we're going to start number 2. Bleed is open. Watch what happens when we throw number 2. We're going to go ahead and start it and watch what happens. The duct should drop a little bit. You can see how the duct's dropping. Alright, now you might need a little more gas. Okay, let's see what we got here. Alright, so you can see how it's coming up. It's still going good, and that duct pressure dropped. And we're going to keep that throttle up to about 27%. Alright, until we get a light off, until we get a cutout. Now we'll go fuel. Number 2's lit. We got light off, I should say. Oil pressure is on the rise. Pressure is off. That's idle. I got number 2 so idle. Just want you to know that. And I'm watching. I'm looking up, checking the duct pressure. Duct pressure's back. Don't do a darn thing yet. All right, until we get rollback. There's our cutout. We're looking for rollback. There's rollback. Number 1's coming back down to idle as we have cutout. Alright, now what? So what we've done, go back here. We're going to fire number 2 on the bus. Come on the overhead. Just now it's normal. Now it's a normal flow. Okay, so both engines are started. Pitot heat's on. Come down here, probe heat, and then we'll go ahead and throw our hydraulic pumps and our packs. So auto, that's off, good to go, no dual. Coming down through here, and you can go continuous, and then APU's coming off. That is it. That's how you do an air bottle start. Obviously flaps 5. That's how you would do an air bottle start. You got an air bottle start and you have a cross bleed. So 1 and 2. So if your APU ever goes out on you in an outstation like this, or even anywhere, if you have an APU fault or a failure, that's how you start the engines. Okay, using that procedure. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. I know it was quick, but another abnormal that flight crews happen a lot. Believe it or not, there's a lot, and they might defer this APU downline. It can't do any ETOPS. It's not an ETOPS aircraft anyway, but they'll have to defer it downline for quite a while. But they could. I mean, they're not going to fix it right away. That's for sure. It'll probably fly the whole day. If it comes to a maintenance base, great. It might take a couple weeks, couple days, depends. But they'll fly it deferred like this. So I'm going to get out of here, take off, taxi, and we will see you on the next flight. Hope you enjoyed it. Comments are welcome. And check us out every Friday night. By the way, if you want to support us, that'd be great. It's patreon.com/the737guy. Until next time, keep the blue side up and the brown side down.